Hello everyone, the Liberty Game Boy here. Today I'm responding to a video by Leo from Actualized Clips titled, "Is Taxation Theft? Debunking the Libertarian Argument." Before I start, I'm going to briefly mention something. 11 of 12 of his videos, from Corporate Lobbying is Legalized Bribery to Humans Are Corrupt, Not Government, are from Conscious Politics Part 4, but each one links to Conscious Politics Part 3. If anything, linking to the wrong video makes it a little harder to get to the original video, but hey, you do you. Let's get into it.
The next suggestion is, but Leo, taxation is theft.
Just look at that smug smile he's got there. Kind of tells me that he's not going to approach this idea in good faith.
This is a talking point that libertarians really love. They hold it as a dogma.
Hey look, I was right. 10 seconds in and we have ourselves a poisoning the well fallacy.
And it's a very pernicious idea that taxation is theft.
It's also a logically consistent argument, but of course Leo's not going to mention that. I've most likely mentioned this in my other videos, but it bears repeating. If you don't pay taxes, agents of the state will go to your house and arrest you and force you to give up the money, and if you resist your arrest, you'll most likely be shot and killed. You're either getting your money or your life stolen from you, all because you committed the harmless act of not paying money that you never agreed to pay in the first place. How is this not theft? How is this not immoral? The police restricting your freedom like this because of a peaceful act. Also, are you going to explain why it's a pernicious idea?
Taxation is not theft.
Okay, I guess not.
Taxation is not theft because the very notion of theft and property rights does not exist without a government.
4 things. 1. This is an example of begging the question, a logical fallacy which assumes the conclusion in the premises. His premise, the very notion of theft and property rights does not exist without a government, assumes the conclusion, which is taxation's not theft. 2. It's funny how you say that the notion of theft and property rights does not exist without a government, when in a later example you demonstrate the exact opposite. 3. The description of your video contradicts this point. In the description you say, and I quote, "This argument ignores the fact that the legal notion of theft would exist without the existence of government." In your video you say,
"The very notion of theft does not exist without a government."
while the description says, "The legal notion of theft would exist without the existence of government." 4. We libertarians have explained on numerous occasions why both things can and do exist without government. I'll summarize as best as I can. Let's start with property rights. You have what's called self-ownership. You own yourself. You could do whatever you want with yourself. You own your time and labor, and the results of your time and labor. If someone else owned you and or your time and labor, you would be a slave, which is a violation of the consistency principle. Not only that, but you cannot sign a contract that makes you a slave to another person, because that's also a violation of the consistency principle. Now we move on to theft. You own something, say a car. If someone takes it from you without your consent, that is theft, even if you benefit from it. If someone takes my car without my consent and gives me a chocolate bar in exchange, it's still theft, no matter how useful I think the chocolate bar is to me. By the same token, the government takes our money without our consent in exchange for supposed benefits, such as roads, police, etc. It doesn't matter how much stuff someone gives you after taking something, it's still theft. If someone is trying to steal something from you, you have the right to initiate force against them in self-defense to prevent them from taking it. Same thing if they try to initiate force against you first. You can use any manner of self-defense to mitigate that situation.
So what libertarians don't understand is that there's no such thing as property rights in the natural world, in the animal kingdom.
Well, that's wrong. Some animals mark their territory as a way of signifying their ownership of it and warning other animals not to come near it. They can also defend their territory from other animals attempting to take it. They can also have a sense of protection when it comes to other resources such as food, water, and even other animals who may be too frightened or don't know how to initiate self-defense.
In the animal kingdom, the strongest prevail. Might is right.
Strength alone is not the only way to survive in the animal kingdom. Factors such as intelligence, adaptability, cooperation, and agility may also play a role, and I haven't even mentioned all the other factors.
The whole point of government in society is to mollify that and to make it a little bit more manageable and sane and comfortable.
That's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, it also does things to contradict that, like killing their own citizens in acts of democide or the death penalty, arresting or killing people for victimless crimes, and stealing from people without their consent. Now it's at this point in the video where his example mentions both theft and property rights.
There are no property rights if you're just living by yourself in the forest, because you say that you own your tent.
Which is where self-ownership comes into play.
And then if I come in there with a gun, I get to say that I own your tent. And if I have the gun, I win.
Which is where theft comes into play, and that's also unjustified.
That's how it really works. That's how property rights get invented and established and codified and then reified as though they are real. You see, so taxation is it's a cost that you pay.
Slight correction. It's a cost that you're forced to pay at gunpoint.
For the property rights that then government secures for you.
This ignores the fact that the government can take away your property at any time via eminent domain. But why does government have to be the only entity that can secure property rights? Can we not secure our own property rights?
So it's not that taxation is just something that government is stealing from you that you deserve.
That's exactly what it is. If I work hard to earn money, it's mine. Same goes for you. They have no right to take it from us without our consent.
Rather, your ancestors gladly made the trade-off between paying a little bit of taxation for the safety and security and property rights that government provides, rather than living in a fucking jungle where anybody could come and enslave you, rape you, rob you at gunpoint, as long as they were stronger and bigger than you and had more power and more technology than you, and more people than you.
What's funny is that you don't realize that the police can enslave and rob you at gunpoint if you don't pay taxes.
See? So this is a very reasonable trade-off. Also, when you say that taxation is theft, you're completely ignoring all the benefits that government provides to you.
I'm going to stop you right there. We are aware of what the government gives to us, but like I said earlier, it doesn't matter how much shit the government or any other person gives us after they steal from us without our consent. It's still theft. And you want to talk about ignoring something? You seem to be ignoring the fact that private sector versions of these things you mentioned do exist and are often better maintained than government versions of these things. We've shown this repeatedly.
Who's going to protect you from a hurricane or from a wildfire or from an earthquake or from a terrorist attack when it happens? Who? Private company's not going to do this. There's no money in it for them.
All Hands and Hearts and Salvation Army, among others, are private non-profit companies that do this all the time.
Private companies, for example, do not provide flood insurance.
Are you even trying at this point? Neptune Flood and Eon Edge, among others.
The U.S. government, the federal government, has to provide flood insurance because it's a net loser. It doesn't earn them money. So private companies don't want to do it.
Then why are there other non-profit organizations that provide flood insurance?
So, and even when a private company does insure you, you know how private insurance works. If you've ever had to file an insurance claim, oftentimes they try to screw you over and deny you coverage when you need it.
Not always. Sure, some private companies will do that, but more than likely many of them are fair and balanced and will not screw you over and deny you coverage.
They'll find various loopholes, and of course, they structure the contracts precisely in that sort of sneaky, manipulative, exploitative way, such that when you do really need the insurance coverage because your house was destroyed by a hurricane, they'll find, their lawyers, their well-paid lawyers will find some little loophole in the contract that says that, oh, well, the rain damage from the hurricane doesn't really count. That's separate. That's flood. That's technically a flood. So if during a hurricane your house gets flooded, well, we're not responsible. We're not going to cover it. That's the kind of shenanigans that these insurance companies will play, you see.
Same problem as before. Not always. Most contracts from private and even public companies are written to avoid loopholes. Also, you mean to tell me that public companies wouldn't play the same shenanigans with their clients as private companies would?
And so just think about how problematic this is if this is left unchecked.
Most insurance companies are checked. Most insurance companies are not greedy scammers that will try to screw you over like you seem to think. It's in insurance companies' best interest to not screw people over because if they do that, they'll lose business or at the very worst, go out of business. If you feel like you're being mistreated at one insurance company or if you feel like you're being screwed over, you can always find another one. Maybe one that has better reviews or one that you think is more reliable. And that concludes the response. If you have any videos that you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below and I will do them as soon as possible. This has been the Liberty Game Boy and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.